Welcome back to another episode of Choose Africa. Now, today's episode is really good, like lots of good, juicy information. And let me explain some context for it. So we use this amazing fractional CFO named Admira from KARE CFOs. She's fantastic. And she has gotten a lot of questions about how she also works with one of our virtual assistants. Because how do you work with a virtual assistant when you are in a regulated industry? It's a question that a lot of people have asked me. A lot of people have asked her. And so we decided we would hop on a short call and just explain the do's and don'ts of how you can onboard someone, even if you're in a regulated industry like finance or HR, and how to set it up properly, because there are certain things you have to do differently. Now, going into this, I thought this would be a 5-minute video that we would just post on LinkedIn. However, because it's Admira and me, we can just talk forever. So we talked for 30 minutes about the do's and don'ts, and she ran me through everything that she has our executive assistant Hanan do for her, how she sets it up, how she does her inbox and her calendar. And it was so good that it kind of just evolved into a podcast episode without even meaning to. So I will go ahead and let you listen to this fabulous podcast episode with Admira. And if you are someone in a regulated industry, this is for you. It's really just practical outlines of the do's and don'ts and how you can onboard someone to your team and still be compliant within your industry and your state rules. So I hope you enjoy, and let me know if you have any questions after this episode. And thanks for listening. Hey, Admira, I'm happy to see you again. Okay, so first, can you introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do?
Absolutely. So I'm Admira, the founder and a business finance strategist at KARE Accounting and CFO. And what we do, we help our clients transform their businesses so they can grow with ease. And we do that by utilizing finance as a tool.
I love that. And you're going to be having boot camp soon, which we're really excited about. But today we're actually here for another reason. Yeah. I want to talk about, first off, what made you hire an executive assistant, and also, you're in a regulated industry. So what were your concerns about that? What did you face? How did you set it up? I need all the details.
Yes. Well, for me, it started probably like a year and a half ago. And I was like getting very overwhelmed with like day-to-day stuff that I always felt like I was doing catch-ups at the end of the day. Like, kids are in bed. Okay, great. Let me open my computer because I still have another 15 emails to go through. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of administrative tasks. Now, everybody kept talking to me about like, oh, I have an executive assistant. I'm like, that would be nice. But I'm like, in my head, I'm like, what would I use an executive assistant for? Like, I can't allow them to do this and that because I'm in a regulated industry. We deal with a lot of client personal and business sensitive information. So we have to like guard that. So anyway, my process, I said to myself, like, I am going to spend next 2 weeks and I'm going to write down every little administrative task I'm doing. I'm just going to write it down. And so I did. And next thing you know is I had a list of 2 pages of random things that are not difficult to do, but it just requires time to do them. So that it didn't really necessarily require headspace, but it required time to do it, and the time that I didn't have. So then I said, okay, perfect timing to reach out to Valerie, because me and you have known each other before that. So perfect time to reach out to Valerie and see if I can get an executive assistant. And now I have Hanan on my team. So the biggest challenge for me in this process was how to make sure that I wanted her to feel as part of the team, feel like she can easily talk to us, but at the same time, not necessarily give her access to client-related information, because all the team members that are dealing with client-related information, they have a certain level of NDAs and security and checks and all of that done, which I didn't need Hannah to go through because like she wasn't going to work on client work. So first thing I did is I made sure, one, she didn't have access to my email.
Okay.
And the way we got around that is, one, I did set up special access for her to have access to my calendar. because she needed to manage my calendar. 2, we have set up, she has her own email, but we also have a joint email that she uses. Sometimes she uses on my behalf. If there's something that I need, but I just don't have the time to email these people, I would just voice message her. I'm like, hey, email this person with this, and then she'll draw the email, send it on my behalf.
That's smart. So she's not in your inbox, but she's still responding to certain emails.
Yeah. So then there's no, she's not responding to certain emails because I forward it to her. Like if it's a certain email, I forward it to her, but she does use our joint email to send an email on my behalf.
Smart.
Like a separate email, not my main email. And I see the responses because, again, it's a joint email, so I can see them. Now, the other thing that I do is like if I get emails, typically it's like networking related that people are like, hey, send me a few days and times. I'm like, okay, I don't have time to do that right now. So I'll just literally be like, hey, let me CC my assistant Hanan, she'll help. And I'll CC Hanan and she'll like take care of the scheduling piece. Or if I have someone, same thing, networking, then like they'll send me something random. And I'm like, I'll forward it to Hanan and be like, okay, file this or put this index or connect with this person on LinkedIn. So she has access to my LinkedIn. That's not a problem for me. So again, like things in my inbox, like that's easy. Just literally click forward, Hanan, that's it. For the most part, or the biggest time consuming was the first 3 months, I would say, when I had to train her what to do. And then I had to accept the fact that this was going to take a little bit longer for her to understand how, what, when. But now we're at the point where I don't even have to explain. I just literally forward and say, add Dex. She knows what. Or if she CC'd, I'm CC'ing my assistant Hanan. Hanan knows like which days she's allowed to schedule networking calls, what time she's allowed to schedule networking calls, how many networking calls I should have in a day. So if there's a day that there's already 3 networking calls, you don't schedule a call for that day. So we created these, not rules, but like guidance.
Right.
We also worked on emails, like how do you respond to somebody with whatever the case might be. So like, if somebody is emailing about scheduling a call, here's how you would respond. Here's a calendar link you would share with them. Here's a calendar link you would share with people I'm reconnecting with. So there's like, because there's things that are different. So we scheduled all of that. Now, what Hanan, again, does not have access to, she doesn't have access to any of our client information. She doesn't have access to any of our client contracts. That's all sensitive information. She does join our team meetings, which are every Monday. We do talk about clients in that call, but it's more on a high level. Like we don't log into client QuickBooks in that call and just share screen. We don't do that, but it's more, we more go through almost like project management. Like, okay, this client, what needs to happen this week? What we need to do? Do we have any blockers? She is on those calls, but she doesn't understand enough finance. So she's like, sounds good. I don't know what you guys are talking about, but sounds good. She does help us with scheduling client calls. So we have monthly calls with our clients. And then if typically we'll send a client email, say, hey, schedule the calls. But our clients will schedule next 3, 4, 5 calls. And then after that, they don't. So then she manages that. She's like, okay, we don't have a call scheduled for February. She will email the client and say, hey, I'm messaging on behalf of Admira as her assistant. We need to schedule a call, blah, 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 all of that stuff. What else does she do? On a client-facing side, she doesn't do anything. So networking, I explained. She does manage, outreach for speaking engagements. So I do podcasts.
Yes.
She does a lot of so she did create my speaking profile, like the page. So she designed it all, which was great.
It looks good. I've seen it.
Thank you. And then she does the research to figure out who would be a good podcast to be on. And then she puts this on we have a whole, like a CRM thing that she puts the information in. So then I can go review. And then after that, she would reach out to these people and schedule the podcast. What else does she do? I now have to think about what else. The biggest one is managing my time. I overcommit to things all the time.
I could see that. You're like just so helpful though.
I overcommit myself a lot. And
Mhm.
so me and her had created a rule that if Admira has more than 3 networking calls in a day, Hanan is to go and reschedule whatever is addition.
Love it. Hmm.
And so she, like the other day, she pinged me. She's like, February 13, you have like 5 calls and you keep adding. I'm like, yeah, about that. So she's like, we need to figure out who we're going to reschedule. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably what we should do. And it's mainly because after the 3rd call, I don't function my best.
Hmm.
And so it's not necessarily that I don't want to have the call, it's because I don't function the best.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And so for that reason, so she manages a lot of my time.
Hmm.
And then the only
It's smart because as I think as a business owner, you want to say yes to everything. However, an executive assistant, I think, is a very good rule follower. It's kind of like the nature of the job. So it's like, okay, you said no more than 3 networking events. Bam, cuts it off. Whereas you and me might be a little like, well, I could do one more. But Hanan would know, no, that's the rule. I follow it. So
which
that's
is why
smart.
now I don't schedule calls anymore. If somebody emails me and says like, well, I have these times available, and I'm like, I just automatically will commit to one, not even looking at what my calendar looks like. And so now I just don't do it because I know I'm just horrible at it. Or I'll say like, but I can squeeze another call in.
Right. It's hard to say no.
It's just my personality. This is who I am. Now I know that this is my weakness, call it, or whatever you want to call it. And so I just let Hannah do it. It's like we created our rule, and she's less attached to things that I am, so it makes things a bit easier. But yeah, that's what she does. The other thing too that she helped us with is that a lot of our documents were in Canva.
Mm-hmm.
And updating proposals and updating contracts in Canva is just really hard. And I just didn't have the time or the patience to figure out how to convert this into an actual document where our graphs are not messed up.
Okay.
You can't just take a Canva document and convert into or
Right.
a PDF and convert it into document, because then all of your branding is just thrown off.
Gone. Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know how she figured this out, but I remember telling her like, here's a project. And she's like, this seems a bit difficult. I'm like, I know it's a challenge, right? So I'm sure you can figure it out. And she did. She did figure it out. So now we have all of those documents in an actual Word doc, which makes it so much easier to update and then put in our on stuff. Now, I do know that there's other executive assistants who manage contracts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have her do that, mainly because that is an automated process for me.
Mm-hmm.
Use PandaDoc, and so I have to sign the document anyway. So then I'm like, might as well put it in, sign it, and send it to the client, and so that's also the other place where we don't share, or I don't have to share with her.
I think I found a workaround with that. I had the same issue. You can give someone sending access, but not viewing access, so they can prepare the document, send it out, put in the right places, but they can't view the completed contract that might have payment information.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. But I want to ask you some more. So for anyone in the regulated industry, let's do some quick do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
So do give them access to a joint email where you're in control of what emails they respond to. Don't give them access to your personal email that might have confidential information.
Correct. Yes. My email, I only have access to, nobody else. And again, because clients do email me sometimes personally about, and so I wouldn't feel comfortable if I had to email my advisor and be like, wait, who just now read the email?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we want to make sure that we have the trust factor with our clients. So yes, do not share your email. Have a joint email, which is possible. If you use Google, this is very simple to do, like very simple to do. And then do not give them full because they don't have access to your email. They do not have access to your calendar.
Other logins. Okay. So how did you give calendar access? Just viewing, you can like subscribe to someone's calendar.
You can subscribe to the calendar, but there's other settings in there that you have to, now I have to remember because we spent like a couple of hours figuring this out, but it wasn't that hard. If you use Google, Google makes things super simple. If you use Microsoft,
good luck.
It's so hard. Like it just makes things get complicated. But with Google, it was very simple. I had to give her a specific access, and there's like 3 options you have in there, and you have to read through the options. And I had to give her a specific option for her to be able to make changes to my calendar. Like she, for example, with client calls, she has to go in and add the team members to the call because the client will schedule through my calendar, but I'm only the one in the calendar. And the team members are not. But the benefit of her being in our weekly calls, she knows which team members are in which client and which calls they have to be in. So then she will go in the calendar and be like, oh, Boyana is not added in this call, so let me add her. And then she will add them. The other thing too is I color code my calendar. My calendar is color coded. And I had shared the color codes with her. But because I gave her that extra, like it's like the highest level access, she's able to see the color codes. So now she sees like, if it's red, that means, oh, that's a networking call for Admira. But if it's a client call, don't touch. Do not touch those client calls. Do not get moved, nothing. So, you have those like, again, you create these I had rules with calendar long before Hanan, but it just made it easier to share with her. You're like,
amazing.
So yeah, you can share the calendar. Yes, have her join team calls where you talk generic stuff where there's no sensitive information, but because you do want to make them feel like a part of the team. It was very important to me that she felt like part of the team. And fun story, last year, she had started with me in January, I think, or beginning of February. And end of March, we had a team call. It was like a company overview call. I had forgotten that Hanan was new. She was so incorporated in our team. I had forgotten that she was new, that I forgot to announce that we have a new team member this quarter. And then I was like, oh, we have a great team. And I'm like, at the end of the call, I'm like, by the way, Hanan is new with us. It just felt like she was so into the team.
Natural.
It was so natural. It didn't feel like she was new. So anyway, do get her involved because you want her to feel like part of the team. And she can also support other team members if there's certain tasks and stuff. But then do not get her involved into clients' sensitive stuff, like no QuickBooks, no access to client contracts that have sensitive information, no access to any of that stuff. Like, just be careful with that stuff. Do have her do things on your behalf when it comes to networking and then reaching out and managing your outreach. Because for me, example, networking is everything. So, but then I have new people I network with, and there's people that I continue to build relationship with. Those are different type of outreach for me. So, but with the reconnects, for example, I have her say, hey, here's all the people that I want to continue building relationship with. I want to constantly talk to. And if it has been more than 2 or 3 months that I haven't talked to this person, email and schedule a call.
Okay.
She kind of manages that. So I don't have to worry about because it has happened in the past where I wouldn't have talked to somebody in 8-9 months. I'm like, oh my God, that's ridiculous. And so now that she kind of manages that piece where it's like, oh, she didn't talk to this person in 2.5 months. Let me email this person so they can schedule a call and then she can reconnect, which kind of made it easier for me to stay top of mind with my network, which is great. But
that's so smart.
Yeah, but do not have her respond to people that you want to specifically talk to. Like if it's something that, somebody in your network was specifically asking you for, obviously you don't want to have your assistant respond on your behalf. You respond. True. One other thing, I just lost track. One other thing that she does is one-pagers. If somebody new that I have met, we have a one-pager. I typically will say to her, at the end of the week, usually, it's like, hey, here are the people that I met this week. Here are the people, please send them one-pagers to. And then she'll send the one-pagers on my behalf, which makes it simple. And the other thing that she does, which has saved me so much time, is introductions.
Mm.
When I'm talking to somebody networking, right? And like I recognize like, oh, they want to talk to, like, they should know this person. I
Mm-hmm.
typically will message Hanan and say like, hey, introduce this person and this person. And then typically what she does is like gets some information on like what each of these people do. Introduction
Mm-hmm.
emails do not have to be long to begin with. And then she'll send these introduction emails within a day versus it would take me a week or 2 or 3 until I made the introduction. Again, timing, it's just time.
So smart.
So she would do that. She does that on my behalf, which is awesome. So again, there's so much administrative stuff that an executive assistant can help with that has nothing to do with client, because there's so many other things that we do on a day-to-day basis that an executive assistant can help. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that in our regulated industry, we have to be mindful. Like we get caught up into the clients, social security numbers, bank accounts. Like, yeah, but that's only a piece of everything we do as business owners.
Right. There's so much else they can do, and you don't have to give them access to everything if you just set it up correctly.
Exactly. So
smart.
It's all about controls. And at the same time, you have to check in with them all the time. Check in, see where they are, how they're doing. Open communication is important. Hanan messages me usually, like if she's not confident or comfortable with something, she'll message me. She's like, how does this sound? And then usually it's a simple like, looks good, or let me help you redefine that a little bit. So you have to be mindful of that. And some people would get annoyed about stuff like that, but like you just send it, or you should know it. Like, no, but you have to be mindful that they're doing this on your behalf and they want to make sure that you represent it the way you want to. And therefore them asking actually is them caring.
It's always better to have an executive assistant who's conscientious than, because they're sending out things as you, and for you. And the more you teach them and train them and make them feel comfortable, eventually they'll ask you less questions. But in the beginning, yes, you have to train them.
Yeah, but even after, like even now, she sometimes sends me questions that are, and it's more, again, I don't take offense to that. I actually appreciate it because like if she's not 100% comfortable sending something, she asks me and I'm like, I'm glad you asked, rather than after that being like, oh, you should not have sent that, So.
Okay, I know we're running low on time, but I have one other question for you. So we're working together with one of your clients who has hired Reem, who's helping with HR. That's a very other sensitive area. Can you share, you set it up in such a smart way with hiring Pam, and then tell everybody how you did that.
Yeah, so it's a client of mine who, an amazing person. He's built a business from ground up, and he's done an amazing job. But his business margins are low. But he needed HR help. So everyone that I have spoken in US, HR has been a very big ticket price. And so I'm like, he can't afford this. I mean, it's just impossible. So I had to get creative of how I was going to do this. And so I had met with Pam, and me and Pam are in another like local group that we work together with. And I had said to her like, hey, how would you feel if you would come in as a strategist, like on a high level, you know the laws, you know exactly how things work here, on a high level overview things. And then on administrative stuff in HR, they call them generalists. We have a team member who can handle the paperwork. Mind you, this is a business with a lot of volume. And low margins, but beside the point. And so that's when the idea was have Pam do high level stuff and then have Reem then do administrative stuff. So Pam, as an example, Pam would come in and be like, okay, we're going to set up a handbook. She's going to work with a lawyer, like all the handbooks. But then distributing this handbook to 120 employees and making sure that every single one of them is signing it. It's not something that Pam needs to spend time on. Reem can handle that. So then Reem would be able to come in and be like, all right, I'm going to send this to 120 employees. I have to now make sure that every single one of them views and signs and sends it back to me. So she's going to make sure that that's done. Same thing with like, there's tons of notices that this particular client, all of his team members are in the field. They don't go to the office. So in New York specifically, because New York is so strict with this, you have to have in-office notices, but then if your team members are not in office, that doesn't count. So now you have to send these notices to every single team member. So again, Pam is going to come in and say, like, these are the notices. And then Reem is going to make sure that she implements. So she sends it to everybody, that she has tracked a way of, Pam is going to figure out how this is going to happen, but figure out how we can actually prove that these notices have gone to the employees. Here's a compliance side of things. So yeah, so that's a lot of that. Same thing, Reem is going to have access to pretty much everything but Gusto. Gusto is where we run our payroll. I am not too concerned about her having or seeing Social Security numbers per se. I know this has like been a big thing, but in the last couple of years, Social Security means nothing. And that's mainly because Social Security now you can freeze. Like I have it frozen for years now, and therefore and it's free. So nobody has to pay for freezing your Social Security, which freezing your Social Security just means that nobody can access it. So Reem seeing them doesn't concern me too much, but it does concern me that she sees bank account information, which is in Gusto only, and that she doesn't get access to that, for example. So we make sure Pam does. Pam has access to that. She sees that stuff, but besides Pam and us in finance, nobody else gets access to Gusto. Plus, our employees, the way they get onboarded is they get a Gusto link. They self-enter the information. They don't put it in paper anywhere. It's just directly in Gusto. So that control function kind of works well. So you don't get to see access to any of that.
So smart. So you basically took Pam, who's like in the US, HR expert, setting things up because she knows the nuances of like New York law. Yeah. Then you take Reem, who's in Ethiopia, who is an HR expert and is doing like almost like the busy work, making sure everybody's getting things, delivering it. And then you gave her access to everything except for payment information, which again, when I've talked to other experts, same advice has been given. So that's so smart. And it's a good example of you going the extra mile for your clients. So
I mean, anyways, that's what we do, right? I love when clients can get everything, but the small businesses that I work with, again, they don't have resources like bigger businesses do. And so a good thing is to have amazing people like yourself and other people. That's another reason why I love to network is not this, well, for business development myself, yes, but more than that is like, what else is out there that I could help my clients with that, could benefit their business. So yeah, this was great. So I'm like, yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll end now because I know that like I already asked you 30 minutes of business advice before we even recorded this, but Thank you so much for joining. And I hope everyone who's in a more regulated industry now has the knowledge they need to know when to hire and how to set it up properly. So Thank you.
And as well, if they do need to reach out to me and have a private conversation, I've had a couple people who've done this before actually. So I'm on LinkedIn, ping me on LinkedIn and happy to hop on a call and talk further. So I'm an open book for the most part. So
I will just say, if you need a great fractional CFO, we use you. We love you. So we'll point people your way. So thank you, Admira.
Thank you.